I was an athlete who rode with Ted, and I had the privilege of coaching with Ted at World Championships and at the Olympic Games. Ted has had a profound impact on my life as a coach and as a colleague when I became a coach. I want to share with you three things that really has meant the world to me. First of all, I learned that Ted was a huge competitor. On our training trips out west, Ted would run, Ted would lift, Ted would get out there when we were hiking, and he was always energetic. He always was moving forward. He was always pushing himself at any activity that we would do, and he made us push ourselves harder. He also, as a competitor, wanted to make us be as competitive as he thought it took to be successful at the international level. And what that meant is that we do 12 by 1,000. We do 16 by 500. The hardest workout I think I ever did in my life was 2 by 1,000 meters at 38 at 8,400 feet elevation at Lake Tahoe. It was a workout that almost put me in a coma. He kept pushing us in the weight room. He had his special workouts, the 13 bad guys. He did things that he wrote. I was always writing notes on his yellow notepad, scribbling out. I saw some of them today at Penn AC, where he would write down what we needed to do to be successful, and he pushed us to do that. Ted was so competitive that he made sure that our seat racing at night was concluded successfully. So he'd take us out there at 7 o'clock at night. We'd be out there till 9:30 at night. And you could hear him in his deep voice. Now, coxswains, I want you to point on the points of the crescent moon. And you coxswain over here, I want you to point on the fat side of the moon. And I need you to keep this point because the seat race is important. And he kept us out there till late at night doing the seat racing. But through that, we knew that he was building us as the best athletes that we could possibly be. Second point I want to make about Ted is an American hero. Ted would show up at practice, and he would already have show up at practice at 6 in the morning, having fixed a flat on someone's car, repaired someone's battery, and he'd have solved world peace through his work that he was doing. I think it was with Tetra Tech at the time. He was solving climate change. Like, Ted was amazing through what he got there. But he always went out of his way to help people. Whether you were at the boathouse, on Boathouse Row, at a regatta, Ted was always finding parts. He always had a tool that you needed. He would go find the thing that you needed to be successful. And he didn't just do that for people who were rowing on the Schuylkill. He did it for people that would be on their bikes. He would repair bikes. He would repair cars. He did everything that it took to make those around him successful. For me, Ted was a hero. He came out there one day. I was a young sculler. It was my first year sculling in the single, and there was a tempest coming out. And Ted's like, well, we got to go out. We got to do our training today. And I was coming downstream above the Eakins Bridge, above the railroad bridge there. I was getting blown over into the wall. White caps, wind, rain blowing sideways. And Ted came, and I was close to the wall. I was probably going to flip. And Ted came out in this small little duck boat where he had his big hat on. He had the parka on. He looked like old man in the sea. And he came over to me, and he's like, Madigan, I need you to grab the bow of my boat. And he put his boat in reverse, and he backed me away from the wall and let me get into the arch so I could make it back to Penn AC. He left me there. He got me away out of danger, and then he went into the blind tempest to find more athletes that may have needed his help. Truly a hero. As we prepared for races, he was always able to set up the situation or the scenario that we needed to know we were overcoming something bigger than ourselves. Because this is what Ted did. He set up a foil. He set up somebody, something, some event that you needed to overcome to be a competitive, to overcome your demons and be successful and either win your race or throw down the best race of your life. I will always appreciate what Ted was able to do in creating those scenarios that made us better. The final point I wanted to make is that Ted brought a passion and an energy every single day to practice. He did things for us that he came down there, he would ask us the questions that we needed to be asked. He would push us harder than we needed to be pushed. He would build us into that next level that it takes to be successful at the national team and Olympic level. And by doing that, he created successful athletes. And that energy and passion he talked about, Jan that way, he brought us down to his house so that we could clean up the lake, we could clean up the yard, that he wanted to see everything be at a level that was different than what we were used to. He set the standard super high for us, and we were expected to meet it. He also had some insights and humor that he would always bring. He always had that bright, infectious smile that he would bring down to the boathouse. And if something wasn't going right, he'd talk in his Mr. Magoo voice. He had a special Mr. Magoo voice that he'd bring something that we needed to learn, we needed to be better at, and he brought humor into it so that we could be better at it. That humor infused us at Penn AC and at the national team level. When we were at the international events, whether it was an athlete or when I was a coach, he had an ability to talk to almost every single country at the regatta he knew somebody at. It was somebody that he raced against or raced with, somebody that he coached with or coached against. It was people that he had worked with through his professional rowing career, and he brought things and brought the passion and energy that he had for life to these individuals. And everybody, you'd watch these people walk away from them, and they were always smiling and joking, shaking hands, and just as a group, he had such an infectious and positive effect on people. So through these through points, through him being an American hero, through him being as competitive and building us into competitors, and through us being passionate, energetic, and being that person that would guide each of us athletes to a better place, I saw that August 8th of 2008. I spent the day with Ted at the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. We got on a taxi out of the village, out of our rowing village, came down to the Olympic village. We talked to athletes from virtually every sport that there was. We walked around the village and we saw coaches from other countries that Ted knew and he introduced me to. I'm thankful for that. And each time it was someone from one of Ted's past 11 Olympics. And through the day, we met all these coaches. We met all the U.S. team athletes, or not all of them, but a lot of them. We ate at the Olympic cafeteria. And then we prepared for the opening ceremonies. And Ted, he took great pride in how he looked, in the ties that we wore. I mean, in just how he put on the cap that represented the U.S. in the opening ceremonies. It had to be just right. He was looking at the mirror, and he recognized the pride that it took to be an American at that Olympic opening ceremonies. And through it all, we marched onto the floor, 120 degrees on the floor, and Ted is much older than I was at the time. He worked through it, he pushed through it. We brought energy. We were in the front two rows of the United States Olympic team walking in. The pride that he had in that, the pride that he had in us being at that moment was incredible. And it really profoundly has impacted me. And at the end of the night, Ted said, "We've had an incredible evening. It doesn't get any better than this." And I just want to say to Ted and to Ted's people that everyone he's had an impact on here, this network that he's had an impact on, said, "Ted, you had an incredible life. It doesn't get much better than that. And I want to thank you for building that in us and for what you've done for everything that I've worked to become through my future. Thank you. Good night."